I was raised up in local government, brought up in it, right? And, I was at least, I was brought up a certain way. It's the code of ethics for crying out loud, right? I'm not going to try to list them all. You know as well as I, and we're the professionals, right? We make sure that the delivery of service occurs every day as it's supposed to. We are driven to do things in an efficient and cost-effective manner. We're ICMA, International City Management, City County Management Association, right? Management. What does that mean? Is it just management? Is it leadership as well? Right? We were raised up that way. And how we were raised, is it still relevant today in that context, the way that we were raised? It also includes, right, never getting in front of the elected officials. We're always supposed to take 2 or 3 steps back. We stand here. I heard Cheryl Scully say this morning at the donors breakfast, part of our job is to give the elected officials the credit for what we do. And she said, yeah, and they believe it, right? She said, which is true, but that's how we were brought up in it. We're supposed to be 2 or 3 steps back. Is that posture still relevant today? Can we do that in these times? Can we? Right? Or do we need to? Are there times when, as we look at things that are occurring today in these times, are there times when we even need to be more assertive about stepping into the void? And does that broaden the definition that is implicit in what we mean when we say management? I don't pretend to know the answer. I'm asking the questions so that we can have conversation. Sometimes I think that if I were allotted so much time, right, to ask questions or look for answers, I might allocate the majority of my time to asking questions. There's power in asking questions, but I might do that. How do we remain relevant? We are relevant today, still. It's been great for a century. Right? But we're being tested, I think. That's my observation. We're being tested. They're pushing on us. Multi-generational demographics, right? Varying values, varying vocabularies, right? What does work look like? Well, it depends on who you're looking at, who you're talking to, how old you are, right? What does a work environment look like? What's it supposed to look like, right? Is it behind the desk? I mean, that's the traditional deal, right, with all of the walls. Well, we see other environments, work environments that aren't like that. We know the vocabulary's changed. We talk in terms of thought design. What the heck is that? It's in your organization now. We throw around the word innovation all the time, right? What does that mean? Does innovation belong to anyone? But it sounds like sometimes it belongs to people a lot younger than me, right? I'm trying to avoid, because I heard one of my board members say they hate the M word, so I'm not. That's millennials. Oops, I said it. That's millennials, right? Does it belong to them? I would argue that it does not. It doesn't belong to anyone, right? There's room, there's space for everybody, right? It doesn't belong to just the big cities. It doesn't just belong to Austin or Seattle or Portland or these cities that are more known for that, right? It can occur in the smallest environment. Remember, minimum viable product. It can start out this big, right? What about information sharing? What about citizen engagement and how all of that has changed the social network, right? Making all kinds of things possible in terms of people communicating with each other. Even in this role as executive director, I'm still very much a city manager. I just am. And so I look at, things through those lenses. And part of that for me has entailed, and I'm known for saying it, pushing to the edge. I believe in being on the edge of my seat because it's the passion that I feel, and I can't help that either, right? The relentless pursuit of the best, being excellent, all of those things, the relentless pursuit, creating an environment that encourages people to pursue their greatest potential in all things all the time. That's what I think we're supposed to be doing, right? Our job as leaders in this business is to try to create that environment. We don't have all of the answers. I told you that about this gathering today, right? Relentless pursuit in the context of what we believe in, the code of ethics and professional conduct, and the rest of the stuff that you've committed yourself to in your own communities in regard to values, corporate values and principles. Valuing employees. I'm telling you about things and conversations I've had in ICMA that have resulted in some of the things that you see as new and different. Valuing employees, not just in the context of that particular thing that you hired them to do, right? That job description, because that's fairly narrow, I think, because they have more. Their values more than that. They have that. They have their education. In combination, they have wisdom that comes with that. And I just ask the employees, everyone, to bring that with them every day because it's all relevant to what we do. And when you think about valuing the people that you engage with, that you interact with in that context, right, I would submit that all kinds of things become possible, even things that may have seemed insurmountable before. It's that diversity of thought, right, and experience and education, right? It's all of that. When I was contemplating the prospect of competing and being the city manager in Austin, I remember, because I wasn't sure at that time I wanted to be a city manager again. I wasn't sure I was an assistant city manager in Fort Worth, but ultimately when I made the decision to get engaged in that process, asked to, and along the way, I remember thinking to myself that if I'm going to do this again, I want to get it right. I'm not sure I knew what that meant when I said it, but I knew it had something to do with work I needed to do. Not reading a book or anything like that. It wasn't like that, but I want to get this one right. And and I remember thinking things like what I'm doing today, about, what does it mean to be a leader? And sort of concluding it means letting them see, even if you're an introvert. Scary stuff because it means being vulnerable. Who wants to be vulnerable? Letting them see, least of all an introvert. Letting them see, right, Martha? Letting them see, right? Authentic. Wanting to be authentic, right? I was talking to some other people around the conference in the different rooms that I visited, and I talked about a little bit about authentic leadership in the context of the lack of civility that seems to exist today in public discourse. The lack of civility that seems to exist today even in public behavior, for crying out loud, right? And why is that the case? And, at least part of the conclusion that I've come to is that leadership, authentic leadership, I think to a significant degree that there's a void because it takes courage. That's my answer to your question, by the way. It takes courage, right? Authentic leadership. But I suspect you know it when you hear it. You know authentic leadership when you see it. And when you're in the presence of it, you feel it, right? You feel it. You see it. You hear it. And I think people are longing for it. everywhere, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. People are longing for it. And in the absence, there's that kind of void that I talked about before and raised the question of, do we step into the void, right? That pushes up against how we were raised. Do we step into the void? And in the absence of authentic leadership, you're apt to get anything might fill up that space, even something that may not be in the best interest of those we serve. So I think the answer is that it begins, Jim, with the individual. That's what it is for me, and it's a continuous journey. It's ongoing, the work. And some days I have good days, and some days I have very bad days, right? You know, it's recognizing the relationship between leadership and ego. There is a relationship there, right? We all know that's right. You know, sometimes we struggle with embracing ideas from others. We struggle with embracing the fact that a good idea is a good idea regardless of where it comes from. And here's the important part. Even if it isn't yours, authentic leadership